as I read through the 12 signs, rising signs, please know that we'll be touching among a lot of different topics that house that you're being affected by represents, and not all of them are going to apply to you, but it's possible that some of them, in some cases all of them, are going to apply to you. So I want to start with Aries rising. Your chart has been in a deep state of upheaval and change around your financial sector. So this is one of the most literal, transits around material world changing. Possibility that your form of income has changed, your type of income, the source of it. It's possible that the numbers in your bank account have changed. It's possible that the way in which you want to be making money has changed. It's also possible that your relationship with your body has been changing, because the second house, it's debatable. I know everyone's gonna have different opinions. It's not a health house. That to me is more of the sixth house, but it can be the relationship with the physical home, and the home in which we're first born into is our bodies. And so possible that your relationship towards your body and how you relate to it has changed. And then the third possibility is that your desire for grounding and stability has really changed. So maybe your values and your priorities in the world have shifted. Your sense of security has probably been massively fucked with in these recent years. And that has forced you into a state of learning what it is in life to really be interdependent. So what this really exposed was your 8th house of intimacy, leaning on partners, discovering you're not alone in the world, discovering that there are other avenues through which you can create wealth. Maybe you've discovered new ways to do that that are maybe more fulfilling than the old ones, or maybe the slow and steady wins the race thing is no longer your mentality around this, because in some ways that maybe for whatever reason has been exhausting for you. So breaking out of scarcity, breaking out of this is the only way I'm ever going to make money, this is the only way I'm ever going to build wealth, etc. That has changed for you. Taurus rising, so much change around your identity. Taurus rising is one of the most sturdy rising signs. You guys are very, slow to change from a personal identity perspective. I know this because my husband is a Taurus rising, but I love him for it. It really makes me feel safe in the world that he is so sturdy and stable. But a lot of shifts around how you self-perceive. So, some of us are like, oh, I've always been, an athlete, or I've always been a musician. I've always been an academic. And then the universe was like, psych, that's not going to work for you any longer. So, it can change even really superficial things like your style, like the way in which I like to physically present is changing because my identity is changing. So all of that has been super up for negotiation. In the past couple of years, that has been in some ways giving birth to and enhancing your partnership sector. So realizing the more I stay stuck in my ways and the less I am willing to change, the harder it is going to be for me to have intimacy in my partnership sector. So there's a possibility that partnership has either provoked some of these changes, or by the process of you rediscovering yourself, your relationships change by proxy. But bringing more honesty into your relationships has been making your chart really also bring more honesty into the identity, and vice versa. Gemini rising has had Uranus in the 12th house of the subconscious. So for you Gemini risings, there's been a lot of change and upheaval around your spiritual life, around maybe your subconscious beliefs. The 12th house is considered the house of the undoing, which I always think is so funny, but it's essentially when we go into our dream state, we're like, whoa, there are so many different ways that I see the world. Uranus, I think, has been saying, hey, you have some fixed ways of understanding yourself and understanding your psychological underbelly. For many, I think Gemini risings, a very secret part of them is that routine can be overly utilized to maintain some sense of mental health. And so they can kind of get fixed in patterns, you know, of like overly depending on security for their mental health. And so this has been inspiring some changes around your sense of like work and productivity and service. It's been inspiring changes around your health of like, you know, how am I exercising, moving, how am I eating, how am I sleeping? You know, for some people, they're changing their vocation because their sense of purpose is changing. You're no longer stuck in this state of like, I need to be safe on the inside. Now your charts may be thinking, God, all of this is changing. My psyche's changing, you know, my beliefs, you know, my way of kind of being alone with myself is changing. And so I'm willing to do more daring things, perhaps on the outside, or I want my external reality to mirror some of the psychological changes I'm going through. So for some people, they're going through like crazy cool psychedelic healing things. For other people, they're trying out new therapeutic modalities. For other people, like they're discovering a spiritual inner landscape that's really new to them. And I think that can be a really cool thing. Cancer risings have been going through really big changes around their sense of community and belonging and legacy. So like, how do I belong to the world around me? And so for some people with this part of their birth chart, they were friends with or belong to systems and kind of larger organizations that maybe were not beneficial to them. So, you know, saying like, I've been at the same job for 100 years, or, you know, I've always been a part of this group or this, you know, religious institution, or I've been part of this family even. And, you know, something in that is in great need of change. I need to get out of my own way, or, you know, the universe is going to do that for me. Because Uranus is often, you know, the universe doing for you what you cannot do for yourself. So change in maybe your career sphere, but most importantly, just like the groups that you belong to. So maybe your friendships have changed a lot. I've seen some Cancer risings become much more community driven, much more interested in, you know, having, you know, people that they can have and grow and as an individual, and they become more of a leader in some ways. That has really been inspired potentially by the things that you are loving and expressing in your life right now. So for some people, they fall in love with someone who really changes this about them. For other people, they discover a new creative side of themselves. For other people, like their sex life is really in this blossoming state, and that's changing how they're showing up in the public because they're becoming more daring. Their Kundalini energy is growing. They're growing into their sort of main character era. There is some change that's breaking you out of some rut that you used to have in your social sector. Leo risings have had a hell of a time professionally in these years. It doesn't have to be bad, by the way. I mean, I just mean you might have worked for companies or within structures, or your own business has undergone like a lot of unexpected changes. So I have a lot of Leo rising clients, and they have witnessed a lot of changes within their careers that they could not have forecasted. So this job fell out of the sky, and then I went to this other company, and then I tried working for myself, and then all of a sudden this happened, or I can't get a job anymore. I used to be so successful. What the hell is happening to me? And what it's been doing is it's been illuminating your fourth house of home and family history. And so what it's been doing is saying, is there some childhood stuff that is unaddressed that has been making you so stuck in your career? So for some people, their childhood was so riddled with instability or lack of safety, or, you know, emotional insecurity, that they can overly depend on this like 10th house of public success. And it's actually been keeping them in a rut rather than actually making them flourish in their professional sector. And so maybe you've healed some stuff in your family in these years, or at the very least, you've begun to create more levels of safety. Sorry, I'm like not into my hair right now. More sense of like, safety within your home life. So it's allowing you to be able to take more risks in your professional career. For other people, they're just having a huge change around prioritizing the career so much. So maybe they begin to have changes around like, I need to start creating a family or a home, or I need to begin to like invest more in like my R&R time. You know, I want to like my apartment. I want to like my home. Those are the directions in which Uranus is taking you, is saying, stop emphasizing the career so much. What are we not addressing within the sense of internal home? Why don't we feel safe here? And what are we overcompensating for within the career? Virgo risings, myself included, but I'm born at 29 degrees, so I kind of am also Libra rising. We have had Uranus disrupting and dismantling not only our belief systems, but also potentially like our education sector. So for some people, they've been through a wild ride around, you know, things that they're studying for, or, you know, the master's degree that they're getting, or the bachelor's degree that they're getting, or, you know, I'm studying this like holistic medicine route and I'm taking this really cool, interesting course. Or for me, I enrolled in MISPA, which is the Mercury Internet School of Psychological Astrology. Like there's been something that's been saying we need to learn something different. Our old belief systems are not enough. We need to update sort of the software of how we're understanding the world. And what it's been provoked by is potentially a change in location or a change in the way that the mind is processing information. So the third house rules the lower mind, which is just sort of the monkey brain, like how we're processing our thought patterns. It rules friendships, I think, around like our social circles. It rules communication. And to me, not to me, it also rules sort of like the city in which we feel the most comfortable in. So for some people, it's their hometown. For other people, it's definitely not their hometown. Potentially something has been really changing around discovering, why am I so overly reliant on, you know, I'm only going to live here. I'm only going to be friends with this person. I'm only going to believe in this thing. What am I not looking at? What am I so afraid of? And so many Virgo risings have had to go through many different changes around understanding, you know, what they believe in and how they want to see the world. And that could be through travel or different experiences or location or friendships. And it's, you know, brought them to some type of new belief system. Libra risings are going through a lot of change and upheaval around their 8th house of shared resources, intimacy, inheritance, secrets, psychological behaviors. The 8th house is it's a Scorpio house. It has so much to do with our partners. And I say that plurally because you don't need to be partnered to have a partner, you know, a friend, a family member, a colleague. You know, the 8th house has so much to do with like what's going on with the people that we're intimate with, but it also has to do with like our own relationship to intimacy. So some Libra risings have really had to confront their intimate relationships. You know, I don't feel seen here. You know, my sex life is not what I want it to be, or haven't addressed, you know, the sexual trauma, or haven't addressed this like physical thing that I've been trying to work through, or, you know, my money has been crazy. My relationship with money is crazy. My partner's relationship with money is crazy. My friends are, you know, not showing up for me in the way that I want to. And so the Libra's relationship with intimacy has been changing so drastically. We've been forced to become, I think, a lot more honest. And so you know, what it's really been bringing up and what it's maybe been inspired by is a chart realizing of like, I feel kind of on my own. I feel like everything stops with me. The buck stops with me, you know, financially and personally, psychologically, I am so overly independent. And I really want to begin to feel more safe and secure, you know. And this idea of sex, you know, it's different for everyone, of course, but it's this idea of like, it's theoretically can be a shared experience. And Libra's risings have gotten a crash course in like, are you willing to actually depend on other people? And it's easier said than done. For damn sure, it's easier said than done. Scorpio risings have been going through a lot of changes around their partners, but also just their roles in their relationships. You know, the 7th house is about obviously romantic partners, business partners, professional partners, mentors. Also, it's the house of like open enemies. And so it also just has to deal with like the people that we're engaging with and how we're engaging with them. It's just, I call it the house of them. And them is whatever you think of when I talk about like the people in your life. And so Uranus rolling through that sector of your birth chart is saying, you know, these roles that you typically occupy are like way overdone, way overused. They're too stuck and they're too stable. You know, maybe the partnership is in a rut. Maybe this thing that you guys used to think was so good because it was so reliable has actually been the undoing of the very thing that you guys both care about. And what are the ways in which we're afraid to change? And what are the ways in which we have been, you know, fearful of adapting to new norms and new behaviors. And what it's been really provoked by is like the chart, I think, wanting to embrace more of its own honest self, and feeling like, you know, I've been holding back some of my Scorpio in this relationship. You know, I haven't been as honest as I want to be, or we've been avoiding this tough conversation, and, you know, we just like cuddling on the couch, but in reality, we need to be talking about some super serious things. So Scorpio has been going through a lot, Scorpio rising has been going through a lot around partnership changes. Sagittarius rising has been going through a wild roller coaster of daily activity and like the sort of daily routine. So this has absolutely affected vocation, not so much like your LinkedIn profile, but it's affected your day-to-day existence. So like I would imagine there's been a lot of changes in the way you're working. And so, you know, do we wake up at 6 a.m. or do we wake up at 8 a.m.? And do we exercise before work, or do we go to work at all? And for some people, they've gone through a lot of health changes. You know, for some people, the body has hit its limit around something and they're feeling burnt out, or they're feeling like, ooh, this thing is not, that used to be so stable and secure to me. Like I used to eat overnight oats every morning. That's just not working for me anymore. And it's really been provoked in many ways by a desire for the subconscious to become more realized in the physical world. So for some people, they say, I've done a lot of psychological work. I've healed a lot. My subconscious, my spiritual life is very honest, but it's not translating into my day-to-day existence. And I want to bring a much more authentic lens to like how I'm literally structuring my life. And so I've seen my Sag rising clients go through some wild changes just around like the way in which they are physically, you know, organizing their life on a day-to-day basis, getting out of ruts. It's really cool to get out of a rutty routine. You know, it's not fun for anyone. Capricorn rising has been going through a lot of changes around the 5th house of true love and the 5th house of sex, children. The 5th house is also the house of just like self-creation, you know, like a self-expression. And so there's a possibility that you want to change what you're giving birth to. And so for some people, they realize, you know, my creativity, I got into a more and more narrow box. For other people, they say my love life and like the things I'm attracted to, my sexuality, or, you know, the way in which I'm approaching, you know, love and connection, I want to outgrow some of that, or I'm attracted to different types of people at this phase of my life, or different modalities of creativity. You know, something has been blossoming around like this shall not stay the same. For some of Cap risings, it's been provoked by children that have just totally rocked their world of like, you know, this pregnancy or this child or this energy has completely changed the way in which I want to be self-expressing. And the way that it's really been pushing is around trying to be more honest around legacy. Like, what do I want to be remembered for? And, you know, like, what am I really here to express? Because if we're stuck and we're fixed in like one way of loving and living in the world, maybe that's not actually going to produce the legacy that we're really looking for, which is a legacy of honesty. Aquarius rising has had a hell of a time around their 4th house of home and family history. So, you know, just to be the most literal cheap hotline psychic, for a lot of Aquarius risings, like the family has been in a deep state of change. So, you know, some of my clients who say, I had the perfect childhood, Nadine. I have no idea why any of this is happening. My parent is changing, or this unexpected thing happened. The family lost the house, or, you know, this one person who was such a stable fixture in my family life has suddenly changed. But, you know, in addition to that, very literal interpretation, for some people, literally, they've moved homes a lot. Like literally, they've bought and sold a million times in these years, or they've gone through a lot of rental nightmares where they keep having to uproot themselves. The 4th house is a house of home, and like, it's our, you know, crab shell, like where we feel safe. And then for other people, their relationship with the psychology of their childhood has changed a lot. Of like, you know, many of us go into therapy and we're like, what do you mean? I had a perfect childhood. And then upon further reflection, suddenly we're like, fuck, you know, there is so much I really didn't look at. It's provoked by this new sense of, as a leader to my birth chart, I want to be someone who leads with more honesty and self-awareness, you know? And so maybe getting ripped out of the home, metaphorically and literally, has been producing much more resilience around, you know, what do you want to be doing? You have nothing to lose, you know, you don't need to stay in some of these fixed ideas within the birth chart. Lastly, Pisces rising has been going through a lot of changes in the third house of communication, the mind, and friendships and community, as well as like physical environment that they're living in. And so for some of them, literally their friends have changed a lot, you know, or the people that they hang out with us have changed. But what I've kind of witnessed the most with Pisces rising is like a desire to change in the way in which they're being seen and heard in the world. And so for some people, they realize, you know, this friend is never going to hear me. Or for other people, I used to be a writer, now I want to be a public speaker, or, you know, the vice versa. Or for other people, they realize, you know, the way in which my mind has been processing information and stuff has been too fixed, and I need to kind of shake things up. And it's really been provoked by a new belief system around, you know, go to the places that scare you. If you lose friends, or if you lose, you know, ways of thinking and being in the world, or if you lose a location, because you're being honest and forthright and you're being sincere and provocative and like willing to have tough conversations, like why would you want to keep them anyways? And so for some people, they've moved cities, and that's been a big change. For some people, like, you know, they had this like really fixed group of friends and they all got dispersed amongst the country. Or for other people, you know, they're really sick of the way that they process and like their mind is working. And so they're discovering new modalities to like better be engaging with the mind. And it's just been getting the chart out of a rut. But my final thought, now that I've covered all the 12 signs, is we are still not done with this transit. So I started this whole video by saying, why do all of us feel so stuck? And I will end the video by saying it's okay if we still don't know where these new infrastructures, how they're going to be built, when they're going to be built, what they're going to look like, what we need to do to get there. I think what I have been realizing is we need to be patient the way that Taurus is. Slow and steady wins the race. I'd much rather build a metaphorical home over a decade than build a home in 6 months that's going to be torn apart again anyways, because, you know, the studs and the foundation is shitty again. And so take your time. Like, we're all so discombobulated. Our worlds have been turned upside down. Like, have grace for yourself. And, you know, do thorough inventory and be honest with yourself and all those things, but also don't expect, you know, to change one's life overnight. You've already done a lot of changes, I would imagine. I think changes have been forced upon you, is my guess. And so, you know, my curiosity is, in a fun way, now that you have this empty, beautiful plot of soil, you're going to spend the next year still tilling and making that soil really gorgeous and sure. Do you want to just start envisioning the garden from now until July of next year? Like, do you want to just imagine like, ooh, maybe we'll put like a rose bush over here and like maybe lilacs over here and, oh, a vegetable garden in this corner, you know, like a relationship here and a career here, you know, you could just begin the visualization process, because we're still just getting used to the new tectonic plates. This has been, I've never met a single human being who genuinely really likes change that's forced upon them. I know many human beings that like change that they are, you know, choosing to do. But a lot of Uranus and Taurus has been done by a power greater than ourselves. So be patient, visualize, imagine the garden, and I am very excited to see what each of us grow in it starting next year. So yeah, I think that's all.